completed with a set of activities, including a call for academic papers, still on the notion of multi-stakeholder governance. And this project is coordinated by my colleague, Konstantinos Komaitis. So if you have any questions on that specific activity, you should not hesitate to contact Konstantinos. Regarding the IGF 2014 event, we felt it was important to engage with our members at an early stage in the preparatory process, especially at this point of juncture where the pace of internet governance discussions is really accelerating. We have, coming in 2014, we have, of course, the Brazil event on the future of the internet governance. We have the WSIS Plus 10 review, important ITU conferences as well, such as the WCDC and ITU Planning COP. So obviously 2014 will be very dense. And we see in this context that opportunities and expectations for the IGF are growing. We feel the IGF community needs to engage collectively in reflection about the future of the IGF. And we know our community, the ISOC community, is deeply involved in the IGF. Many of our chapters, individual members, have leadership roles, specifically in starting, developing, supporting regional, national IGFs. A little bit of context for today's discussion. As you know, the IGF Secretariat recently launched a call for contributions, specifically on preparations for IGF 2014. The consultation was closed last Monday. And I know that many participants, members of the ISOC community, have sent their input to this contribution. For this specific consultation, ISOC has proposed some quite concrete innovations for the Istanbul meeting. The core of our proposal, and this is something we would like to discuss with all of you today, is to enable the IGF to produce policy outcome documents. These outcome documents would be open for voluntary adoption, so this means we would not be transforming the IGF into a body that would be producing binding outcomes. And this respects rigorously the initial mandate of the IGF. The idea here is to seek inspiration from the IETF's working methodology, and notably to start substantive intersessional work. This means that we would envision a MAG that would support the community, the IGF participants, between the annual IGF to lead discussions, substantive discussions on policy issues that would result in outcomes formalized at the IGF meeting or between those IGF meetings. In the same spirit, you will see in our proposal that we are suggesting to revive best practice forums. So basically, and I'll stop there, we feel that the Tunis agenda and specifically Article 72 leave some room for the IGF to continue to grow, and we'd like to take advantage of this opportunity we have with all of you today to hear your views on how you see the IGF evolving in the future, and bearing in mind the global internet governance context. We would really like to conceive this 60-minute session as a very fluid and free discussion. We won't be doing presentations, so the idea is really for all of you to jump in the discussion and feed the collective thought about how we see the IGF growing in the future. Before I ask all participants to jump in the discussion, and specifically Marcus Kummer, who will be sharing in a minute his own analysis of the situation. Let me say that we will be inviting all our members and non-members, this will really be an open call for contributions, to comment on the submission we have made to the IGF Secretariat on preparations for IGF 2014, and specifically we will be asking for your ideas, comments on this proposal to transform the IGF into a body that produces policy outcomes. So let me check that everyone is muted. Before we continue, I will ask all participants to mute. While you're not speaking. Right, okay, that's better. So thank you for your comprehension. I think we have everyone muted. Marcus will jump in to provide his own analysis of the situation. And after, let me reiterate that we really envision this 60-minute session as a very free discussion. We are looking forward to hearing from you what you think of ISAC's proposal and what your own proposals to this same consultation have been. So I will stop there and ask Marcus to jump in.
Thank you, Constance, for this excellent introduction. And hello, everybody. I see many old colleagues and friends who accompanied us on this journey, the long journey the IGF has taken. I will not provide as much an analysis, but more try and provide context. And although I'm closely associated with the history of the IGF, I'm not here to talk about the history, but rather look at the proposal and how does it fit in. Next week, we will have the first preparatory session for the IGF meeting in Istanbul. And Constance will be in the MAG and she will present the proposal and try and sell it to the other MAG members. So your feedback is very important. It will help her also to situate it, and if it has the support of our membership, it will make it even more strong. So how does it fit in? Constance already referred to the mandate of the IGF as contained in the Tunis agenda. Indeed, that is sufficiently open and allows for the possibility of making a recommendation. The difficulty of making recommendations in a multi-stakeholder setting is the process, how to get from A to B. But the IGF in our analysis has really matured on the long journey of the first IGF in Athens to the last IGF in Bali. And Bali has shown that the IGF is ready to take the next step. There was moves towards a convergence on certain issues where the IGF in particular has worked on throughout the years. And it has also shown the maturity of the participants who engaged in discussion on difficult issues. And this has been commented on in Bali itself by some participants, including, I remember a newcomer who said, I used to be an IGF skeptic, but now I'm a convert. Now, we have looked at the ITF as a source of inspiration. And you may ask, why the ITF? There are certain commonalities between the ITF and the IGF. There is the commonality that neither the IDF nor the IGF are organizations. They are meetings, but they are incredibly open and inclusive meetings. Anybody who wants to can participate. And there is definitely a very similar approach. And the IETF has, over the years, produced standards in a very open setting and standards that work. Now, we do understand that the world of standards is somewhat different from the world of policy. Technical standards can be tested, and there is a process that allows for the testing of standards, and in the end, it is the market in a broader sense that determine whether the standards actually do get adopted. And when I say market, I would also include the users. Standards sometimes get approved, but they don't really make it and they don't get used. So they are adopted on a voluntary basis when the market decides so. But there are challenges in transposing this model to the world of policy. And that's why I think there is the importance of this proposal is that it is, again, different from the normal world of UN meetings where the outcomes are adopted by consensus, but our proposal sees outcomes adopted on a voluntary basis. And Constance has referred to best practices. Can you please make sure you mute when you're not speaking? There is an interference. This is, I think, a key component. And this is an experiment. And it may work, it may not work. And in the end, it will not be the market of companies, of economics that will decide, but it will be the market of policymakers, of ideas that will decide whether it works. But we think there is a good chance that we can transpose the model to the world of policy and begin with small steps. We have explained in the paper some of the proceedings the IETF uses, and we would not suggest that we use exactly the same for exactly every field of policy, but maybe take a first step with best practices that can be documented. And explicitly in the paper we mentioned spam could be an example. We had a session in Mali where we picked up on the leftovers from Wicked in Dubai in 2012. Spam suddenly emerged as an issue. Developing countries pointed out that they didn't have the tools, so we thought, let's have a session on spam, and we showed that solutions exist. They're not solutions to eliminate spam, but they're solutions to cope with spam. And that kind of session could be documented as a best practice outcome. Similarly, we had discussions in Bali on the role of governments, on principles. These are important issues that are on the agenda. And in the IGF, we have moved a long way towards an agreement on what constitutes multi-stakeholder principles. Terms such as transparency, openness, inclusiveness, balance, accountability, these could be also part of this kind of session. Constance referred to the necessity of having intersessional work. That would again be learning from the IETF, where most of the work in standards development processes gets done between the meetings. In the IETF context, or that in form of dynamic coalitions, this could be enhanced into more structured intersessional work. And lastly, we also think, and I heard that others have made similar proposals, that what the IETF calls birth of sessions, where new ideas can be introduced and experimented, could be introduced to the IGF to make work towards more meaningful outcomes. Now, this is something that is we build on the work of the CSTD working group on IGF improvements. They clearly called for the IGF to produce more tangible outcomes, and we think this could be one way of moving that way without turning the IGF into a negotiating forum, essentially keeping the character of an open platform for dialogue, but at the same time moving towards some more tangible outcome documents. I will stop at that, and I look forward to your comments and suggestions. Many thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marcus. I will ask everyone to mute while not speaking, just to make sure we have a good sound. We have many participants, so it's important to make sure you are on mute while not speaking. So thank you, Marcus, for that analysis. I will ask now our participants to jump in the discussion very freely, either to give their views on the broader internet governance context within which we see the IGF evolving, and that allows us to identify opportunities of growth for the IGF, either on a concrete proposal to enable the IGF to produce policy outcomes. If there seems to be a consensus on the fact that the IGF could produce outcomes, there are certainly different ways to reaching that goal. If you would like to jump in, you are invited to use the little hand up icon. It should be on the left of your screen, or to use the text box, and you will be given the floor. So please don't hesitate. Who would like to jump in? Okay, apparently we found the source of that noise. Are there any hands up to feed the discussion? Any comments? I'm sure some of the participants have submitted their own contribution to the IGF consultation. Okay, do we have any participants planning on attending the IGF MAG and open consultation meetings next week? Or do we have any thoughts on whether or not the IGF should be producing policy outcomes?
Hi, Constance, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi everyone. This is Susan Chalmers speaking. I will be attending the consultation next week, and I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the proposal, that ISAC has put forward. It's really nice to see that we're attempting to kind of solve this problem about addressing the need for an outcome in a way that I think quite elegantly mirrors a process that most people are comfortable with and have supported and have faith in. So, yeah, I just wanted to express my support for the proposal.
Okay, thank you very much, Susan. Are there any other requests to take the floor? I think it's Chip Sharp. Is that, Marina, did you identify Chip?
Yes, that's me. Thank you.
Please, Chip, jump in.
Yes, I'd like to thank you all for putting this contribution into the IGF MAG consultation next week for discussion. I think it's a good proposal for us to start with, to kind of start the discussion of how to move forward with IGF. There are, of course, some concerns, but there are always concerns on everything, I think, regarding the IGF and possible outcomes. And I think this will be a good start for it. One thing I'm thinking of is it seems to talk about proposals for starting up working groups at the next MAG meeting next week, and maybe I misunderstood that, so maybe you can clarify that. Working groups at IGF are generally started with a boss, right, first before forming a working group, and I didn't know if that's what y'all were planning to do or thinking about doing. Of course, we'll have to discuss it. Another one is, if we're going to following the analogy of IETF, it tends to work on the concept of a running code and rough consensus. And I'm not sure how that translates over into an area where it might be affecting policy. So those are two questions maybe y'all can address. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chip, for those comments and questions. Regarding ISAC's proposal, the idea is for the MAG to consider, starting after the February meeting, intersessional work on substantive issues, issues which would have been identified as key issues for the IGF 2014 event. So to hopefully address your question, we would not necessarily be starting formation into groups, while if there's agreement, we know that the MAG environment is very flexible and spontaneous. But in any case, the underlying thought is that if we want to be able to deliver policy outcomes at one stage or another, between the IGF meetings, we need to have ongoing intersessional work. We view the IGF as a help in that context to organize, steer, engage with the right stakeholders, make sure they're involved in the processes. Again, this is a proposal that will need to be discussed during the next week's MAG and open consultation meetings, and I guess we will take it from there and see if there is an agreement or if there are other proposals, alternative proposals to work towards possible policy outcomes. Frederick, I think you had a question. Frederick Dunk.
Hello, everybody. Hope you can hear me okay. Yes, look, do you see any influence of this conversation on the outcome of the IGF on the regional and local IGFs? And my corollary question would be, should we actually inject the same kind of conversation at local level? Thank you.
Are there any reactions to that question? I'm happy to give a stab at it, but if anyone would like to share their thoughts, I think it's a very good question. Okay, I think we've seen over the past 2 years, and specifically in Bali, that the importance of the regional and national IGF is clearly growing. If I recall correctly, we have in Bali had an official track to attempt to integrate the outcomes of the national and regional IGFs. In thinking about how that happened, I think definitely there's room for improvement. If it is clear that the national and regional IGFs are invited to feed the annual global IGF, if all the organizers have this target in mind, I think the way they conceive their national and regional IGFs will be structured accordingly. I think it's also very interesting in terms of the weight it can give to national and regional IGFs, who can hope to have an impact at the global level through the regional track of the global IGF. If we were to have policy outcomes at the global IGF, definitely we should find a mechanism to invite all the participants to national and regional IGFs to get involved in those tracks of discussions. That would be, from my perspective, a very important step. I see another question in the text box from Peter Knight. Did you want to jump in, Peter?
I'm a little confused by all the alphabet soup. It's almost as bad as I can, but it seems to me that the preparation for all this meeting in Istanbul, it's a little hard to do it without taking into account what's going to happen at the Net Mundial in Sao Paulo in April. And that's going to involve just about everybody in this business. And I wonder if you could reflect a little bit on that. For me, it's my first inversion into the IGF discussion.
Thank you very much for that common question, Peter. I think it's a very important one. I will check if anyone would like to address it. Okay. In any case, I think it's a very important point. We see the role of the IGF, and specifically an enhanced IGF, an IGF++, as we call it, as a place clearly where the outcome of other fora, dialogues on internet governance could continue, and possibly on which the community could even identify ground for consensus. The idea of having an enhanced IGF with policy outcomes, basically with areas of agreement, the importance and the relevance of having this type of evolution for the IGF came directly from the fact that we see the acceleration of pace of the internet governance discussions elsewhere. So to address specifically your question, I think whatever comes out of the Brazil event later in April should certainly be echoed and continue during the preparatory process leading to Istanbul, and definitely whatever comes out of Brazil with regards to the discussion on internet governance, for instance, should be resumed at IGF Istanbul. I think we have Virat is next.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please.
Okay. So in response to that point, I think we will all have to make efforts and try to not only make IGF important, but I think there is some sort of question on the relevance of IGF in the minds of some governments, which might deepen this year, given the fact that other seemingly competing events have come on the scene. It would therefore have to be a very conscious effort to link the reports from the UNCSED Working Group on Enhanced Cooperation, the discussions and possible outcomes, not sure how much can happen in 2 days from the Brazil meeting, to the IGF. In fact, it should also be our objective to try and actively mention IGF in those documents, those who are responsible and are in those meetings, because that will then give it the legitimacy. I think the challenge with IGF in minds of some governments is that they don't particularly care so long it is a chat shop or a set of sessions which has policy dialogue. They neither recognize it as a outcome-oriented or a decision-making platform, nor are willing to give it that status. So my request would be that we would have to work really hard this year to try and not only keep it consistent with everything else that's going on, link it, but also defend and enhance its overall importance, given that it falls about a month before Plenipot, which is another big one this year. Thank you.
That's very helpful in terms of context. Before I let Avery jump in, one of my colleagues from communications, Leah Kisling, would like to share information with you.
Hi, everyone. Just a quick note that you can also tweet out or send in questions using the hashtag IGF2014. So we'd love to see your action there too. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Leah. Avery, please jump in, and apologies, I mixed up the order, so please jump in.
No problem. I'm assuming I can be heard. Can I be heard?
Yeah.
Okay. Avery.
Oh, okay, fine. I wasn't sure I was being heard. Okay, I wanted to go back to two of the points that Chip raised. And the first one having to do with BOFs and such. And I think, actually, I'd never thought of it before, but the IGF in itself as a talk shop, as people constantly call it, is very much a BOF setup. Most every meeting we have at the IGF, where we have people coming together and saying, these are my concerns, these are my issues, this is the topic issue as I see it, is essentially what a BOF works like. So I actually think we have that. In terms of running code, we have many organizations beyond IETF, or many meeting plannings. If to go with Marcus's, it's not an organization. It's organized, so perhaps it's not a formal organization, but nonetheless, is those organizations, their structures, their methods are working code. Now, when the IGF has given advice or has made sort of roundabout statements about the modalities and actions of these other organizations, some of them have actually stood up and said, oh, we need to respond to this. So when we're looking at the IGF and its importance, perhaps its importance actually fits very well in with what ISOC is, or Internet Society, apologies. Internet Society is trying to put forward, which is you gain importance by doing something useful. and coming up with these sort of proposals or, voluntary standards, for want of a better term, proposals for ways to build governance systems, to improve governance systems, etc., is actually a touchstone for importance. If these things are coming out and people are starting to adopt, and there is feedback and there is work on them, then the work becomes important, and perhaps even governments will be able to pay attention. Thank you.
Very inspired. Are there any reactions to Avery's comment before I give the floor to Münster Miley? Hey, Münster, the floor is yours.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining this meeting. Just I have a small question, or not a question, just comment. How can we make all these outgoing forums, just like in Turkey, in Brazil, for the internet governance, all of them goes to make what we call International Covenant on Internet Governance, ruled by the UN or ruled by anything, but it's just one covenant to all the countries to sign it. I'm doing that because there is a lot of countries, mainly in the third world or poor countries, they have a lot of problems in the internet freedom, internet, all the internet, even they don't have even internet, good internet, not on surveillance, a lot of things in the internet we have the problem. But if it is from the UN or something like that, and all the countries sign it on it, it will be so good to go, the outgoing of all the forums go to this point. Thank you.
Can you, in a nutshell, just remind me what the question is? I'm sorry, I didn't hear very well.
It's not a question. It's just a hint for all the participants on the forum to go to the outgoing of the forum, the Turkey forum, just to direct to the International Covenant on Internet Governance.
Right, okay. Okay, that's what I thought I had understood, and I think it's a very pertinent comment, and it echoes very well what Virat was saying earlier in terms of the importance of the IGF, which in the future could have a more central role with regards to the broader internet governance landscape. And this is how the Internet Society really sees it as at this point of juncture, the IGF possibly becoming that central forum where whatever other dialogues we have on internet governance, we know that annually we have this completely open and multi-stakeholder moment where the community can gather and literally address any type of questions. So I think definitely the point you made, Münster, echoes very well with what we are seeing. I think Susan Chalmers was next in the queue. Susan, please.
Hi, Constance. No, I think I had my hand up accidentally. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Who do we have in the queue next? Saeed, did you want to jump in? I see your comments. You should feel free to take the floor.
No, that was just a comment. I have nothing to say. It's ironic, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Konstantinos, I think you were next in the queue then.
Everybody, thanks, Constance. So I was wondering whether the participants believe that seeking to replicate to the extent possible and wherever it's feasible the IETF model to the IGF in terms of having some sort of tangible outcomes in forms of recommendations or whatever else, best practices. Do you believe that this will allow also the community to come even closer together and also will again place the IGF into more concrete terms as the focal point for policy making in the context of the internet? Thanks.
So your question is about the feasibility, maybe in a tight time frame, to transform the IGF into a body that produces policy outcomes. Is that it?
Exactly, over time. I mean, this cannot happen, overnight, but whether there is this flexibility over the foreseeable future for this to happen.
Right. That certainly is, I think, a question that many participants of the IGF community have. Some of our members have noticed that ISOC's position on the IGF has evolved a bit. The feedback we had with following this contribution was, first of all, very positive, and applauded from the point of view that there was a very tangible proposal in terms of trying to produce these policy outcomes. And I think it comes from the fact that there is a confidence in the fact that the forum is mature enough and the community that gravitates around the IGF and feeds its work would be ready to dedicate energy and try to achieve deliver these policy outcomes. Marcus, I see you have your hand up, please.
I'd like to follow up on the question Frederick raised first, and I would be very interested to hear from our community how they see the relationship with the regional IGFs. So if we have now regional IGFs really in every region, I think it will be very important for our community to engage on the ground and also to make sure that the very general principles of the IGF are respected. This does not always seem to be the case. The IGF Secretariat does not have the means to A, inspect whether these principles are respected, and B, to enforce these principles. So I think it is important that we do this in a bottom-up manner and make sure that all the regional and national IGF initiatives are really truly bottom-up, open and inclusive, and based on a true multi-stakeholder approach. I don't have the answer to that, but I think we as an organization can play a very useful role in this regard. We do have a global presence through our chapters, and I would be very interested in listening to what you guys have to suggest in this regard. Thanks.
Are there any reactions to Marcus's comments before I give the floor to Virat and then to Dave? Okay, I don't hear any. Virat, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. So just to both the comments, first the one before Marcus and then the one by Marcus. In terms of converting, we can use sensible language so that nothing seems too sudden, to transform the IGF in a time-bound manner into sort of best practices exchange platform, and then sort of outcome oriented in the final analysis. We'll have to have a bigger discussion with the business community. But I think the low-hanging fruits, at least where international best practice is concerned, is an excellent first step to try and invite stakeholders who have otherwise kept away from the IGF to engage them. Example, access stories, given the fact that more than 4.2 billion citizens across the world still don't have access. So the ones who've been able to provide access, I think those stories, even though they are mostly private sector investments, make governments in countries very proud. So that's a good place to start even for the Turkey IGF, where we call in these stories, recognize what happened and how other countries can learn from this. And if 5 countries find this in a multi-stakeholder environment to present their cases and find the pride in what the rollout has been and how it has helped connect the unconnected, I think that can set the stage for other international best practices, which can then follow into the more sensitive areas such as free speech and cybersecurity, privacy, etc. But just sort of, I think low-hanging fruits to convert skeptics would be a good idea place to begin. On the issue of regional and national IGFs, I just want to say that I think in theory this is a great idea, but in practice, not all regional IGFs can bring in cohesive agenda items to the table. For example, the Asia-Pacific IGF includes Japan, India, and Singapore, China. So not much in common, either in terms of their governance models or some of the core values that the Internet shares. So it becomes a little difficult. On the other hand, if there is and we should try, because perhaps in Africa it's a much more cohesive common set of issues. So it depends from region to region. But on the other hand, if national IGFs can be given space and outcomes can be presented, or a session can occur, or sessions can occur around national IGFs, because right now the linkage is sort of in spirit, but essentially we will need to provide space and time for national IGFs to present. Maybe it's too much to start rating or awarding national IGFs for openness, for effectiveness, for inclusivity, but perhaps something like that can be thought of, which will then encourage not only national IGFs to follow the international principles without us having to run after and check if they are consistent with the with the global IGF best practices, but also then bring them in and showcase them, or at least have them apply and put in their applications to say what they've done, how they've done it, and then make them feel good about it and pride, and give a sense of pride there. So I think those are the two things where I think if we can incentivize both best practice demos and national IGFs with time and space at the IGF, we will get more people interested, the linkage is stronger, and perhaps a sense of consistency. But all of it goes to just defend and enhance the importance of IGF as perhaps the most important place to have policy discussions and in the future some sort of outcome that's said after transforming it in a time-bound manner. Thank you.
Virat, for that interesting comment. I think we have Dave in the queue after Virat. Dave, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm live. I was really glad to hear Marcus talk about the national IGFs because he's absolutely right. In particular, the United States IGF probably doesn't exist at the moment. It has, if you go to the website, you'll see that it's from 2012, and it essentially seems to be that the coordinator for it, Marilyn Cade, is not having things happen. So I think it would really be useful to get the IGF going in the U.S. and make it deeply inclusive. And since there are about 6 people on this call who know Marilyn, can somebody other than me nudge her to open it up? Much more important, though, we keep talking about multi-stakeholder and IGF, and we're really fooling ourselves. The IGF overwhelmingly is drawn from those participants who can afford, from the global north. The majority of the internet now is in the global south. Africa soon is going to pass the United States in the number of internet users. China now has double. And the IGF, like ISOC itself, has not been able to reach out to these communities and bring them in anything like proportionate to their presence on the internet, which means that the IGF is secondary, beside primarily being a talk fest and not having authority. Fortunately, for those of us who actually believe in multi-stakeholder, there's a remarkable opportunity directly from Amadou Touré, the head of the ITU, to make the ITU far more effectively multi-stakeholder. He pointed out publicly at Columbia, and I followed up in an interview, that ISOC itself, and I see we have a representative on this call from ITEF, are members and have a relationship with ITU. Like the United States, which brought 104 people to the ITU meeting in Dubai, ISOC can enable all our active, respected members to be full participants in the ITU, except for voting, and very rarely does it come to a vote, and in the ITU-T study groups, simply by doing so. Now, I've raised this before. I've raised it with Constance and others, and I think we should move on that right now. I don't know if the problem is Marcus is keeping control. He'll probably disagree with that. But the key thing here is that we find some way to open up the ITU by opening up ISOC, ultimately to any NGO who wants to participate, as Hamadoun invited us, but immediately to our experienced members, because the ISOC delegation to the ITU has overwhelmingly been the United States and Europe, and that really discredits us at the ITU and as our own representative to multi-stakeholder. I'm done.
No, thank you. Thank you for that that extensive comment that started with the IGF and continued with the ITU. It's good to have various institutions in a broader context. I agree, although the possibilities of participating in these various institutions, as you've noted, is there are some differences, obviously. But coming back to the IGF and keeping in mind that we have about 4 minutes left, I see that we have in the queue, if I'm not mistaken, we have Jolly. And then, unless anyone else has additional questions, so please let me know now if you'd like to take the floor again, or for the first time, before we move to the concluding remarks, and I'll ask Marcus to say a few words to wrap up this very good discussion. So unless there are any other requests to take the floor, I will ask Jolly to come in. Jolly, the floor is yours. very much. I think so. Dave, you requested to take the floor again, and then we have Marcus for the concluding remarks. So, Dave, please.
Yeah, I just asked for 15 seconds to clarify what I was saying. I wanted to say that spending all this effort on the IGF, which is not multi-stakeholder and is so far from representative that I don't take it very seriously, I think that we should put our effort instead to going where the rest of the world goes, where Africa and Asia and Latin America go, and taking the multi-stakeholder model to the ITU and working actively to bring multi-stakeholder there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave, for that clarification on what you were trying to express. And thank you all for your contributions to the discussion. Marcus, please, if you could wrap up the discussion.
Yeah, I will be very brief, and thank you all for your thoughtful comments. I think that has been very helpful. And we clearly think the IGF is worth the investment, as it is the only true multi-stakeholder platform under a UN umbrella where everybody can participate. And some of the comments made echoed very strongly, and basically the proposal is what we are called going for low-hanging fruits, taking it step by step, and there are issues where we feel that we should be able to come to closure. And I also listened to Jolly's remarks. This is very much the narrow line we have to walk. If we try to push towards more tangible outcomes, we don't want to fall into the trap of turning the IGF into a negotiating platform. So this is a very careful balance, and the value of the IGF is indeed the openness where people get together and discuss issues in an open fashion. A last word on the regional IGFs. We recognize that no one size fits all. Each region is different, but at the same time, I think we ought to work towards making sure that some basic procedural principles do get respected, that there is no capture of a regional national IGF, that there is a truly bottom-up multi-stakeholder approach, and that the meetings are open and inclusive where everybody can participate. That's my takeaway from this call, and thank you once again for your very thoughtful input.
For those concluding remarks, we will share the recording of the session with our members list, and as discussed, we will launch a call for comments on our proposal for IGF 2014. So thank you for your participation. Bye-bye.
And then he asked, she asked, are you on the same